At the dinner party, my green tea stepsister lifted her chin and approached, her arm linked with a man's. Sis, my new boyfriend. What do you think? I stared straight at the lipstick mark on the man's collar and smiled provocatively. Quite good. But you're not worthy of him. I was sitting in the lounge when the door suddenly swung open. A delicate voice chimed. Sis, why didn't you tell me you were here? I set down my wine glass and looked up. It was Wei Yan, my sister. Just as I was about to call someone to have her removed, my gaze shifted to the man she was clinging to, and I raised an eyebrow in surprise. I had seen this man at the party earlier. While I was discussing a collaboration, I had been carelessly pushed into the water. I'm not a strong swimmer, and when I came to, I realized it was this man who had saved me. Why was he with Wei Yan? Wei Yan's next words cleared up my confusion. The man, Yuzu, was Wei Yan's boyfriend and a doctor. Boyfriend? I narrowed my eyes, taken aback. Seeing my gaze fixed on Yuzu, Wei Yan tightened her grip on his arm. Wei Yan said, Sis, what do you think of my boyfriend? Impressive, isn't he? My eyes lingered on Yuzu, and as I recalled the sensation on my lips, I slowly curved them into a smile. Yes, quite impressive indeed. Wei Yan smirked triumphantly. Wei Yan and I are half-sisters, with only a few months between us. My mother had always known about their existence. I had once witnessed my father hitting my mother over that woman. She wasn't weak by nature, but for my sake, she endured it. After that, whenever they appeared, mother would send me upstairs. Not long after my mother died in a car accident, my so-called father brought those two into the Wei household. Once they moved in, they targeted me at every turn. I never understood why until one night, when I accidentally overheard them discussing my mother's death. Who would have thought that wretched woman had a backup plan, leaving all the shares to that brat Wei King? Dying was too good for her. Don't be angry. As long as Wei King is still here, we can still get our hands on them. In that moment, everything became clear. I despised him deeply along with that hypocritical, disgusting father of mine. When Wei Yan seduced my boyfriend and sent me photos of them in bed together, this feeling of revulsion peaked. She's just as repulsive as her mother. Now, watching Wei Yan flaunt her boyfriend in front of me, praising him to the skies as if he were heaven sent and unmatched on earth, I propped my chin on my hand and stared blatantly at Yuzu. When Yuzu met my gaze, I deliberately ran my fingers over my lips. That was where Yuzu had kissed me just an hour ago. Sure enough, at my gesture, Yuzu's expression changed, and he glanced uncomfortably at Wei Yan. Seeing his reaction, my smile widened. As the dinner party ended, I was waiting for my assistant to drive me home. When I turned around, I saw Wei Yan walking out arm in arm with Yuzu. Wei Yan was chattering about something and suddenly laughed. But Yuzu remained aloof, ignoring her, a stark contrast to their intimate demeanor in the lounge. Wei Yan spotted me and approached with exaggerated surprise. Sis, you're here too. I had no interest in engaging with her. Seeing my indifference, Wei Yan's enthusiasm only grew. She eagerly invited me to leave with them. It seemed she hadn't had enough and likely assumed I would refuse. I put away my phone, lifted my gaze past Wei Yan to Yuzu, and smiled sweetly. All right, Wei Yan. In the end, Yuzu and I got into the car together. Wei Yan was called away by our father at the last minute and, unable to disobey, left reluctantly. I hadn't expected such an unexpected gain. Wei Yan had truly shot herself in the foot. Sitting side by side in the back seat with Yuzu, I propped my chin on my hand and stared at him intently. Yuzu stiffened slightly, sitting ramrod straight. Is there something you need, Miss Wei? I asked. Dr. Yu, could I have your contact details? Let's get to know each other. Yuzu glanced at me but didn't respond. Smiling, I pressed on. Which hospital do you work at, Dr. Yu? I haven't been feeling well lately. Get plenty of rest, Yuzu replied after studying me briefly. I chuckled and traced a finger over the back of his hand. Dr. Yu, Jingde Hospital, Yuzu answered stiffly, withdrawing his hand into his pocket. His ears tinged pink, though I didn't notice in the dim car light. Before getting out, I successfully got his WeChat, now sitting in my contacts, awaiting my attention. After a few busy days, I finally had a moment to check my phone and saw Yuzu's post, planted at the hospital, accompanied by a picture of sunflowers. Memories of Yuzu surfaced, so I grabbed my bag and went to find him. At the hospital entrance, I smoothed my wavy hair and was about to head inside when another car pulled up. Wei Yan stepped out, wearing a white dress. She stopped when she saw me, eyeing me up and down before fixing her gaze on the crystal lace bracelet on my wrist. I could easily guess what she was thinking. Unfortunately, this bracelet was custom designed for me by Dyes and is one of a kind. I lifted my hand, letting the bracelet sparkle in the sunlight. It seemed to irritate Wei Yan, who snapped, "Wei King, what are you doing here?" "I'm at the hospital to see a doctor, of course," I replied, deliberately drawing out the word doctor. At that, Wei Yan flared up. "Don't waste your efforts. He would never fancy a woman like you." Tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear, I said lazily, "What are you so nervous about?" Wei Yan glared at me but, for once, said nothing and strode inside. At the door to Yuzu's consultation room, Wei Yan was stopped by a nurse for not having an appointment slip. No matter what she said, the nurse wouldn't let her in. Meanwhile, I had booked an appointment in advance. Standing at the door, I smirked at Wei Yan, my appointment slip and crystal bracelet practically flaunting themselves. Wei Yan shot me a venomous glance before shoving past the nurse and storming off. It was my first time seeing Yuzu in a white coat, and it was quite a novel sight. With his gold-rimmed glasses, he looked exceptionally reserved and aloof. Just sitting there, he commanded attention. Yuzu looked up when the door opened, a flicker of surprise in his eyes when he saw it was me. I sat across from him and got straight to the point. "How did you meet my sister, Dr. Yu?" Yuzu didn't answer my question, focusing on writing on my medical record. "Miss Wei, you might consider getting a physical examination when you have time." I nodded. "Sure, but you still haven't answered my question." Yuzu stopped writing and looked at me, avoiding the question. "This is the medication I've prescribed. Remember to take it on time." I smiled and nodded. "I saw your girlfriend outside earlier." Yuzu's pen paused briefly. His tone was detached and indifferent, as if Wei Yan's visit meant nothing to him, hardly the attitude one would expect from a boyfriend. I raised an eyebrow. It seemed I was onto something. I left the hospital with Yuzu. Before stepping outside, I had assumed Wei Yan had gone home. Unexpectedly, she was waiting at the entrance. When she saw Yuzu and me emerge, her eyes nearly sparked with fury. She marched over to Yuzu, instantly transforming into a delicate white lotus, tears welling in her eyes. "Sis, he's my boyfriend." "Oh. So what if he's your boyfriend?" I observed Yuzu's reaction as I spoke. "I haven't done anything." Yuzu shoved his hands into his pockets, subtly sidestepping Wei Yan's attempt to link arms with him. "This is a public place. Mind your behavior." I watched the two with keen interest. This was getting intriguing. Wei Yan clearly hadn't expected Yuzu to slide her in front of me. Her face paled as she turned to glare at me. I crossed my arms, smiling without a word. Wei Yan shot me a look before addressing Yuzu. "Yuzu, I'm your girlfriend." Yuzu seemed to process this for a moment before replying flatly. "Oh." Wei Yan smiled triumphantly, but my focus remained on their exchange. Wei Yan's words sounded more like a reminder to Yuzu their relationship was clearly more complicated than a simple boyfriend-girlfriend dynamic. After that, my visits to the hospital to see Yuzu became less frequent. A project at the company ran into issues, leaving me with even less time. I spent several days dealing with the problem, working late into the nights. Rubbing my temples, I stepped out of the hotel and spotted a girl being dragged away by a group of boys, crying and struggling helplessly. I frowned, and at the same time, the girl's face looked familiar, as if I'd seen her somewhere before. I sent my assistant to bring her back and handle any other issues. Meanwhile, I sat in the car, eyes closed, my head throbbing, likely from drinking too much earlier. Soon, my assistant returned with the girl, along with the compromising photos she had been forced to take. Rubbing my temples, I asked, "What's her name?" The assistant replied, "Yushasha." "You?" I opened my eyes and looked at him. The assistant continued, "She's Yuzu's younger sister." Suddenly, my headache vanished. I took the phone from my assistant and scrolled through the photos, each one more explicit than the last. After examining them, I said calmly, "Make sure they're all destroyed." The assistant nodded. "I've taken care of the rest. This is the only copy left." I pocketed the phone and praised my assistant. "Well done." I arranged for Yushasha to be taken home. After returning home and taking a shower, I pulled out my phone, took a screenshot, edited it, and sent it to Yuzu. A question mark came in reply shortly after. Staring at Yuzu's profile picture, I sent him a room number, Jiangyi Hotel, 10315. After sending it, I paid no further attention. I knew Yuzu would go. The next morning, I went to the hotel early, waiting for Yuzu. While waiting, I took a call from Feng Xiaoshan. Feng Xiaoshan is my nominal fiancé. I need him for cover, and he needs my help. Having this arrangement makes things more convenient for both of us, so we naturally started collaborating. Feng Xiaoshan gave me an unexpected surprise. My sister had actually taken the initiative to hit on him. Feng Xiaoshan, just give me the word. If it's a no, I won't make a move. I leaned lazily against the sofa, looking out the window at the brightly lit skyscrapers. Do whatever you want. Just don't cause any deaths. Feng Xiaoshan sounded hoarse, as if he'd just gotten out of some woman's bed. If you were willing, I wouldn't bother with a woman like her. We're just business partners. Feng Xiaoshan. I reminded him of our relationship. Feng Xiaoshan. All right. So unforgiving. I asked Feng Xiaoshan to keep an eye on Wei Yan for me and let me know if she made any moves. After hanging up, I focused on waiting for Yuzu. Soon, Yuzu arrived. He seemed to have come straight from work, still carrying the scent of hospital disinfectant on him. It wasn't unpleasant. Yuzu stood before me, looking down. I looked up at him, waiting for him to speak. Delete the video and photos. Hearing this, I grinned, tilting my head as I stared intently at him. Of course I can delete them, but nothing in this world comes for free. Yuzu's brow furrowed slightly. How much? My smile widened. Dr. Yu, do you think I'm short of money? Yuzu didn't respond, just pressed his lips together and looked at me. I rose from the sofa, curled my lips, and reached up to straighten Yuzu's collar. What I want? Does Dr. Yu really not know? I wanted to sleep with him, and Yuzu knew it perfectly well. Yuzu's frown deepened, sharp enough to kill a fly. Dr. Yu, Miss Wei, this concerns a girl's reputation. Yuzu interrupted me. I let out a light laugh and sat back on the sofa, looking at him. Whether her reputation stays intact or not depends on Dr. Yu's choice. With that, I waited for Yuzu's reply. Yuzu remained silent for a long time before finally agreeing. For how long? 3 months. After 3 months, this thing will disappear from the world. Fine. The next day, Yuzu and I left together. After a night of exertion, my mental state wasn't great. I looked as though I hadn't slept all night. My gaze fell on Yuzu, who had been silent since we left. Take me to the company. Yuzu turned to look at me. His lips moved, but upon seeing my pale, paper-white face, he swallowed his refusal and nodded stiffly. I sat in the back seat with my eyes closed, my head spinning, a faint ringing in my ears. Suddenly, the car stopped. Yuzu got out and shut the door. I glanced at his retreating figure before closing my eyes again. A moment later, the door opened, letting in a gust of cold air. Something warm in a small square package landed in my lap, a box of candies and breakfast. I froze, looking up at the man driving in front, and slowly curved my lips into a smile. Yuzu didn't look back at me. He restarted the car and drove slowly toward the company. At the company entrance, I had just gotten out of the car when I ran into Wei Yan walking toward me. Today, Wei Yan was wearing a dark red fitted mini dress and high heels, her makeup heavier than before. I studied Wei Yan thoughtfully. Wei Yan had clearly seen me too, but she hadn't noticed who had dropped me off. She shot me a disdainful look, lifted her chin, and strode into the company. When I reached my office, my secretary informed me that Wei Yan had been sent here by the chairman. Looking at the pile of documents on my desk, I waved it off, not overly concerned. She couldn't cause much trouble here anyway. The secretary nodded and left after placing the files on my desk. I don't usually eat breakfast, but I ate the one Yuzu had given me and even opened the candies to try one. It was very sweet. After Wei Yan joined the company, I barely had a moment to spare. Her department heads kept coming to me to complain. Every time I had her removed, Wei Yan would pester our father to send her back in. Somehow, a project that was nearly complete hit a snag at the final stage, and I was about to resolve it. Wei Yan, using some method, managed to get involved and even successfully fixed the problem with a speed that seemed anything but ordinary. Wei Yan then quieted down and stopped coming to the company. I had someone investigate but found nothing unusual. Coincidentally, another project I was overseeing began, so I threw myself into it completely. When Wei Yan reappeared at the company, the project was nearing its end. Seeing her swagger in, I felt a wave of exasperation. What is it this time? You left on your own, I said, not pausing in my work. Wei Yan tossed a contract onto my desk, announcing smugly, the project in your hands is now mine. And father says this position is mine too. I glanced at the contract on the desk. Oh, in that case, you can handle it yourself. I packed up my things, vacated the seat, and let Wei Yan take my place. I knew Wei Yan couldn't have obtained this so easily without Wei Jiju's approval. But this suited me just fine. I no longer wanted anything to do with the Wei family's company. I left without hesitation, which seemed to puzzle Wei Yan. She looked almost disbelieving, though mostly pleased. After I left, Wei Yan acted like an emperor in the company, doing as she pleased. She dismissed any advice given to her, insisting on her own ideas. The key staff I had left behind endured until the project ended, then one by one resigned and reached out, wanting to work with me again. So, I brought them to my own company, set up a dedicated department for them to work hard in, and my secretary came along too, continuing in her usual role. My strongest attachment to Wei Holdings was that it had been founded and built up by my mother. If it weren't for her hard work, I wouldn't have strived so hard all these years. But my patience had been exhausted by the hypocrisy of Wei Jiju and Wei Yan and her mother. Now, I felt nothing for Wei Holdings. Wei Jiju only saw me as a tool. He was still trying to father a son to inherit the family business. Wei Yan and her mother always saw me as an obstacle. I poured all my energy into my own company, and it quickly caught up with the one Wei Yan was mismanaging. The Wei company also came under scrutiny for being suspected of false accounting and tax evasion. Looking at the shares I still held, I thought for a moment and decided to keep them for now. They might come in useful. After finishing a business dinner one evening, I dragged my exhausted body home. I had just sat on the sofa, intending to rest for a while, when Yuzu emerged from the kitchen. Seeing Yuzu in my home startled me for a moment before I remembered I had given him a key, telling him to come over on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Seeing how exhausted I was, Yuzu paused, changed direction, and came to my side. He raised his hands and began massaging my temples gently. Under his touch, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep. When I woke again, Yuzu was no longer beside me. Feeling somewhat refreshed after the nap, I decided to get up and walk around. Just as I reached a balcony, I heard voices from outside. It was Yuzu on the phone. Yeah, I'm at her place now, not yet broken up. I'll contact her soon. Yuzu's words piqued my curiosity. I stopped and stood quietly behind the curtain, listening. The method might be lousy, but as long as it works, it's not lousy, right? Yuzu said with a light laugh. These brief sentences gave me pause. I could understand each phrase separately, but together, they felt somewhat off, as if he had some ulterior motive. Before I could think further, Wei Zhizhu called. Looking at the name on my screen, I smirked coldly. He only remembers me when there's trouble. When things are fine, he doesn't give a damn. Wei Zhizhu had chosen a high-end restaurant. By the time I arrived, he had already started eating. When he saw me, he acted as if he hadn't, putting on his airs. I glanced at the table and sat down, summoning a waiter to order a coffee. Right now, Wei Zhizhu was the one who needed me. He really couldn't read the situation. Wei Zhizhu was still waiting for me to cave and apologize, never expecting I wouldn't react at all. Wei King, I took a sip of coffee indifferent. Yes. Get back and manage the company. Half the staff have left. Oh. I responded flatly. Wei Zhizhu slammed his chopsticks in anger. What do you mean by that? I set down my coffee. Chairman Wei, you are the one who asked to see me, not the other way around. Wei Zhizhu, I am your father, my father. I laughed out loud as if hearing a joke. You're my father when you need something, but not when you don't. How amusing, Chairman Wei. You were the one who told me to hand my position to Wei Yan. I stared at Wei Zhizhu. And now you want me to clean up this mess? Do I look like a fool to you? Wei Zhizhu's face flushed with anger, his jowls trembling. I was about to leave when Wei Zhizhu suddenly appeared before me and slapped me. The metallic taste of blood quickly filled my mouth. I licked the inside of my cheek. Enjoy your meal, Chairman Wei. I won't be coming back. Wei Zhizhu, you'll regret this. Wei King, regret? How could I possibly regret it? On the way home, I saw a bar. Staring at it for a moment, I somehow found myself walking in. By the time I came to my senses, I had already ordered a drink. Not wanting to waste the alcohol on the table, I began sipping it slowly. After drinking for a while, the glass was empty and my head was a bit fuzzy. I took out my phone, stared at the glowing screen for a bit, and my finger hovered over Yuzu's profile picture before tapping it to call. Me. Dr. Yu. There was a moment of silence on the other end before Yuzu's cool voice came through. Yes. I closed my eyes, silent. Yuzu, where are you? A bar, I answered cooperatively. The sound of Yuzu's voice in my ear somehow made me feel sleepy. Yuzu fell silent for a beat. Then I heard the rustle of fabric. Which bar? I let out a low, soft laugh. Does Doctor Yu want to pick me up? Yuzu didn't respond, but he didn't hang up either. I could hear the sound of wind through the receiver. I'm on Neon Street. I didn't know if Yuzu heard me. I placed my phone on the table and rested my head on my arms, looking at it. After giving the address, Yuzu quickly found the bar I was in. When Yuzu walked in, he drew quite a few glances, and some women even approached him for his contact details. Yuzu declined them all, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on me. He pushed past the people around him and walked toward me. Watching him approach, I curved my lips into a smile. In the dim light, Yuzu's features appeared shadowed and ambiguous. His dark eyes seemed like a cage, drawing me in. Yuzu took me to his car and settled me in the back seat, thoughtfully giving me a blanket to use as a pillow. The blanket carried Yuzu's unique scent, a faint hint of disinfectant mixed with a floral note. It soothed my alcohol-fogged head considerably. Inside Yuzu's car, drowsiness gradually enveloped me, and I soon fell asleep. When I next stirred, Yuzu was carrying me, gently maneuvering to place me on the bed. Seeing me open my eyes to look at him, he stilled, his gaze lowered, quietly observing me. I reached out and wrapped my arms around his neck. Don't go. Yuzu paused for a moment, then lay down beside me, still fully clothed, and held me. Satisfied, I snuggled into him and closed my eyes. Just before sleep fully claimed me, I thought I faintly heard Yuzu say something, but drowsiness was too heavy. Before I could listen carefully, I was already asleep. Yuzu looked down at me, asleep in his arms, and reached out to brush aside the hair covering my face. When he saw the handprint on my cheek, his hand halted in mid-air before gently tracing over it, his expression complex and inscrutable. I'll always be here, to accompany you in doing whatever you wish to do. The next morning, I woke up in the warm circle of Yuzu's arms. Memories of the previous night came flooding back like a tide. I closed my eyes, reluctant to dwell on them. It was all so out of character for me. Yuzu had woken when I moved. His voice held the unique morning hoarseness, incredibly seductive. Awake, I took a deep breath, adjusted my mindset, and looked up at him. What's wrong? Yuzu stared at me without speaking. Under his gaze, I began to feel uneasy before he finally spoke slowly. My arm is numb from you lying on it. Perhaps my brain was still alcohol-washed. I momentarily didn't know how to respond. Yuzu extracted his numb arm from beneath me and got up to leave the room. As the door closed, I thought about pulling the blanket over myself, but the sting on my face brought me back to reality. My right cheek was swollen, and the handprint was even more visible. Ouch! My hand had just touched my face when the door opened again. I instinctively turned to look. Yuzu had returned with an ice pack. He came to me and pressed it against my cheek. I watched him for a moment before closing my eyes, focusing on the cold sensation on my face. Don't go alone to meet dangerous people next time, Yuzu suddenly said. I was taken aback. Yuzu continued. We'll go together next time. Me. Okay. I didn't fully understand and was somewhat puzzled, but that didn't stop me from agreeing. Wei Zhizhu failed to get me back, and since Wei Yan truly wasn't cut out to be a CEO, he took over managing the company himself. But he and Wei Yan were two sides of the same coin, neither was suited for the role. The company's stock price had already plummeted due to suspected tax evasion. Although it was later confirmed that only 1 month's taxes were underpaid, the damage to its reputation was irreparable. With Wei Yan and Wei Zhizhu, father and daughter, further mismanaging things, the stock price had fallen to who knows how low. Projects began terminating cooperation one after another. Amidst the chaos, Wei Zhizhu couldn't even find Wei Yan. The missing Wei Yan was currently trying to climb into Fang Xiaoshan's bed and persistently sending me their explicit photos. They were truly an eyesore. I didn't notice when Yuzu had come up behind me. He took my phone, his voice slightly husky. Looking at these too much is bad for your eyes. A physique like this has form but no substance. I tilted my head to look at Yuzu's profile. I felt he had changed, but couldn't pinpoint exactly how. Then what kind counts as good? Yuzu met my gaze, took my hand, and placed it on his abdomen. Seeing me frozen, Yuzu curved his lips into a smile. My company was thriving, and my days were comfortable. The Wei company was on the brink of collapse, its employees looking ashen and defeated. Somehow, Wei Zhizhu found out about my movements and came to block me at my company's entrance. Wei King! Wei Zhizhu's eyes were bloodshot. I looked at him, lips curving into a sweet smile. Chairman Wei, to what do I owe the honor of your visit to such a small company? Wei Jiju's eyes bulged with rage. Was it you who caused all this? Me? Chairman Wei, are you still asleep or have you forgotten your medication? I sneered coldly. Is me not cleaning up the mess you and your family made considered causing all this? What about what you did to my mother? How would you classify that conspiracy to murder or premeditated murder? I spoke softly near his ear. You. Wei Jiju stared in shock, as if unable to believe I knew about the past. Seeing his expression, my smile grew even sweeter. Hard to believe. I found it hard to believe too. Unfortunately, the facts are right in front of me. Wei Jiju. Impossible. You couldn't have found the people who couldn't find the people who did it, right? Well, we'll see about that. I stepped forward and used two fingers to straighten Wei Jiju's collar. If you don't want anyone to know, you shouldn't have done it. She won't be alone in this. She'll join you. I won't let you be lonely. Without waiting for his reaction, I had him escorted away, showing no mercy. After sending Wei Jiju packing, I focused on investigating my mother's fatal car accident from years ago. Company matters were left to my secretary, whose competence I trusted. I had been investigating the details for only a few days when my secretary called. She said the nutritional supplements we had invested in developing had been reported as problematic. No hospital was willing to help with testing, and public opinion was turning against the company. I narrowed my eyes, understanding who was behind this. Although the Wei family was declining, outsiders wouldn't know the intricacies and would still easily grant favors to Wei Jiju. I also tried contacting several testing centers, but all refused, citing lack of time. It seemed Wei Jiju had invested significant resources this time. For several days, I was busy contacting testing centers and had no time to pay attention to Yuzu. Initially, Yuzu would stay by my side, watching me, but then he suddenly stopped coming back as often. Just as I was about to give up on my own contacts and seek Feng Xiaoshen's help, owing him a favor, Yuzu returned with a stack of testing certificates. These are the test results. I put away the phone I was about to use to call Feng Xiaoshen and picked up the documents to review. Yuzu said, I still have some connections in hospital testing. I set the documents aside and looked directly at him. Thank you. Yuzu sat beside me and shook his head. If there are matters like this in the future, you can come to me. I stared at him for a long moment before smiling. All right. With the test certificates Yuzu provided, public opinion quickly returned to normal, and I began sending legal notices to those who had spread the rumors. Not long after sending them out, the person came forward, saying someone had paid him to say those things. When asked for a name, it was indeed Wei Jiju. I narrowed my eyes. It seemed I needed to speed things up. The time living with Yuzu was the most stable and comfortable period I'd experienced. But I hadn't forgotten my goal, to make those responsible for my mother's death pay. Letting them live years of luxury was already more than they deserved. Wei Jiju and the other two struggled desperately just to keep the company from bankruptcy. Major shareholders, having lost patience, were dumping their shares. I, on the other hand, reaped the benefits buying shares at low prices. Now, I was the largest shareholder, holding 52% of the shares. With this 52% stake, I had the power of a single affirmative or veto vote, or I could simply give the shares away. I no longer had any desire to save this company. I believed my mother wouldn't blame me if she knew. Several months had passed before I stepped into the Wei company again. Walking in, I felt an atmosphere of decline. The employees lacked spirit. The receptionist, seeing me, seemed to find her anchor. She hurried over. CEO Wei, are you back to take over the company? I looked at her and shook my head. No, the receptionist sighed, politely greeted me, and returned to her post, opening her computer as if to write something. I glanced at her and went upstairs with my people. As soon as I reached the top floor, I heard Wei Jiju's roaring. I had to admit, it improved my mood. Although I would have liked to listen longer, that wasn't my purpose for coming. I glanced at my assistant, who understood and pushed the door open. When Wei Jiju saw me, his eyes reddened further, as if about to bleed. The people inside looked at me as if I were their savior. They wanted me to come back and save them. Unfortunately, I wasn't here to clean up the mess this time. I sat on the sofa nearby. Through the low-price acquisitions over this period, I now held 60% of the shares, wielding absolute power. I had brought a lawyer this time to seek compensation for damage to my reputation. The lawyer had prepared the evidence and the compensation amount, 20 million. Wei Jiju certainly didn't have that kind of money now. To pay, he would have to sell part of his shares and the house that originally belonged to my mother. Sure enough, Wei Jiju didn't even finish reading before slamming the table. Wei King, what is the meaning of this? Do you have any respect for me? I played with my fingers. Are you worthy of it? With that, I didn't stay any longer. I left with my people. Don't forget, or you lose more than just this money. Wei Jiju was so angry he almost fainted. My mood, however, was excellent. At first, Wei Jiju tried to play the family card, but he didn't realize he had no such card to play. Seeing no reaction from me, he clung to the notion that I couldn't do anything to him and dragged his feet. Only after I sent several legal notices and warnings did Wei Jiju understand that my resolve was unshakable. Just as I predicted, Wei Jiju contacted someone to sell the house. I had been waiting for this moment and bought it. Wei Jiju scrambled to gather the money. After receiving the payment and the house, I called my secretary to arrange for professionals and took them to clean the villa. I wanted everything inside cleared out, not a single trace left. I arrived with my team. Wei Yan's mother was enjoying afternoon tea with her friends. I gave them no time to react, directing the team to start cleaning immediately. Wei Yan's mother panicked and tried to stop them. Wei King, what are you doing? Get out! I glanced around. The villa was filled with many things I hadn't seen before, none of which existed when my mother was alive. The one who needs to get out now is you. I disdainfully pushed aside a vase. Her taste was as poor as ever. Wei Yan's mother, what are you talking about? I showed her the property transfer documents. Wei Yan's mother still refused to believe it, screaming that she would call Wei Jiju back to teach his daughter a lesson. I sneered. Did she truly not understand the situation? I didn't give her a chance to continue causing a scene. I wouldn't have come to evict her without being fully prepared, and of course I had enough manpower. Wei Yan's mother was dragged out, shouting all the while. Wei Yan, sleepy-eyed, pushed open her bedroom door and came out. I had almost forgotten her. With a wave, Wei Yan was evicted along with her mother. Wei Yan stood dazed for a long time before finally reacting to her mother's screams. Furious, she tried to rush back in but was blocked by the bodyguards at the door. I had already informed the security here. They knew not to interfere. After clearing out all the belongings of Wei Yan's family and dumping them in front of them, I instructed the bodyguards not to let anyone in. Once the cleaning was done and the passcode changed, I left. I still had a very important thing to do: send Wei Jiju to prison. When Wei Jiju returned to find the door locked, a phone call revealed I had bought the villa. He was furious but helpless and had to move into the small apartment where Wei Yan and her mother originally lived. Having grown accustomed to the luxury villa, the family found the small apartment uncomfortable in every way. Wei Jiju had sold most of his shares, and the company had no money for him to spend. Now, the family barely scraped by selling off bags and jewelry. Even if the company recovered later, Wei Jiju's share of the profits wouldn't be significant. Moreover, the Wei company was now beyond saving. Without money, various problems within the family surfaced. The once harmonious individuals began looking down on each other. Every day was filled with mutual insults and smashing things, utter chaos. Meanwhile, I moved into the villa with Yuzu. Without those three around, the very air felt fresher. During this time, Yuzu often helped me solve minor issues, particularly in pharmaceutical research, which surprised and delighted me. With Yuzu around, life became easier. Our original arrangement of Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays gradually turned into every day. While spending time with Yuzu, I also awaited the court summons. Not long ago, I had handed over the evidence to the police. With a little investigation, the truth would emerge. Soon, Wei Jiju and Wei Yan's mother were taken away by the police. I attended the trial as the plaintiff. In the courtroom, Wei Jiju saw me sitting in the plaintiff's seat. The look in his eyes was as if he wanted to devour my flesh and blood. I calmly glanced at them, waiting for the judge's verdict. My mother's death was not an accidental car crash. It was orchestrated by Wei Jiju and his mistress, who tampered with the brakes. Wei Jiju didn't want to live in my mother's shadow. Her excellence made him feel inadequate. After meeting his clingy mistress, his desire grew stronger. I had also found the mechanic who tampered with my mother's car. With overwhelming evidence, Wei Jiju and his mistress were found guilty of intentional homicide, sentenced to prison with a 1-year reprieve, to be executed the following year. As Wei Jiju was led out by the police, he passed by me and gritted his teeth. "I should never have kept you back then," I responded indifferently. "Oh, well, thank you for that." Wei Jiju wanted to say more, but the police pulled him away before he could. Stepping out of the courthouse, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, feeling as if a heavy stone that had weighed on me for years had finally shattered. I had never felt so light. Feng Xiaoshen looked at me. Dream fulfilled? I raised the corners of my mouth, squinting as I smiled brightly. Yes. So, Feng Xiaoshen began to say something. Wei King. It was Yuzu's voice. I instinctively turned to look at him, and Feng Xiaoshen's words were cut off. Yuzu stood by his car, backlit by the setting sun, looking at me. Yuzu. I strode toward him. Feng Xiaoshen remained where he was, lips pressed together, watching me leave. He started to raise his hand but slowly lowered it again. A breeze on the road made me shiver slightly. Yuzu took off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Let's go home. I nodded. Okay. Before getting in the car, I turned back to Feng Xiaoshen. Feng Xiaoshen, thank you for your help over the years. We will remain excellent business partners. Feng Xiaoshen was silent for a moment before smiling. Okay. I added, remember to clarify the engagement situation tomorrow. Feng Xiaoshen, still standing there, nodded. I then got into Yuzu's car, chasing the setting sun toward home. Feng Xiaoshen watched a disappearing car, smiled, and got into his own. In the car, I rested my chin on my hand, watching the scenery outside the window. The view kept changing until the car suddenly stopped. I looked up. It was an unfamiliar place I had never been to before. Yuzu got out first and came to the passenger side to open the door for me. I glanced at him and followed him out. Yuzu walked ahead in silence. I lowered my head, stepping in his footprints. He led me to a sea of sunflowers, then turned to face me. I pressed my lips together, about to speak, when Yuzu spoke first. Wei King, do you remember your chubby deskmate from high school? Yuzu asked seriously. His words brought back memories of my youthful, budding romance days. Looking into his eyes, a sense of familiarity washed over me. Wei King, here's something for you to eat. Wei King, my mother made this. Wei King, don't cry. I'm here. Wei King, Wei King. I let out a soft laugh. So it was that little fatty who had always followed me around. It turned out someone had been watching over me, paying attention all along. I looked up and moved closer to Yuzu, reaching out to grasp the lapel of his coat. Long time no see. Yuzu lowered his head slightly and spoke under my gaze. Yes, long time no see. A breeze swept through, causing the sunflowers to sway gently, a love that had been silent to the extreme. The end.